to everybody. This is one of our tech talks. We here at the School of AI at Pi School, we are giving some regularly, let's say weekly based, we are giving tech talks on technology, mainly on AI. Some of them are very, very technical, like last week tech talk. And so diving into machine learning, deep learning algorithms and details. Some other, like this one, are a bit more on a, you see, high level, just to have an overview on what is happening in the AI sector in general. And it's a pleasure to today have here with us Aina, Turillazzi and Marta Ziosi, which are, let's say, they are working on some ethical aspects of artificial intelligence, and in particular, they are involved in this in AI for People. AI for People is a non-profit research organization that somehow promotes the use of artificial intelligence with respect for humans and social needs. During this talk, they will present what AI for People does, what this research organization is doing, and in particular, they will talk about a couple of projects, let's call like that, the AI for People podcast and the AI ethics group. Now I will leave the floor to them, and so they can present their self a little bit, and then start with the talk. I don't know the order, if first Aina or first Marta, but doesn't care. So go ahead. Thank you.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
I guess you can see my screen as well, hopefully. Yeah? Yeah, is it clear? Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. So hi everyone, very nice to be here today, even though virtually. And yes, Aina and I will take this time today to have a bit of more of a, like, let's say, yeah, high level overview of AI for People. We'll delve into 2 specific projects / working groups that we have within AI for People. And at the end, we're also happy to take all of your questions because that's also important, I guess, for an association that vouches to be closer to the people, to actually take questions at the very end, for you also to like to question us, to make us think, and to also reason together, because some of these challenges we think that are pretty big. So we'll take this time today to briefly talk about and introduce AI for People. That's going to last potentially 5 to 10 minutes. And then I'm going to delve into the AI ethics working group. And then Aina will talk about the group that she leads, which is the podcast group and the podcast project. Let's start. I'm Marta. I'm the co-founder and chair of the AI for People initiative. And Aina, together with me today, she's the growth lead. And we work together on the association. So the title of the talk today is How Can AI Improve Society? Initially, we thought about it as just a title without the question mark, but then we also thought that it is still a big challenge. It is not yet a statement. So we decided to add at the very end the question mark. And you will see why. So who are we to begin with? We are a no-profit research association where our mission is threefold: to learn, pose questions, and take initiative on how AI technology can be used for the social good. We try to do that in 3 ways, through at least 3 goals. One, and the first, is shaping AI technology around human and societal needs. The second is that technological development should always put the interest of the people first. So related to the first one, in a way, around people and start and end with people. And one of our main aims is also to narrow the gap between civil society and technical experts. And this is something, the 3 goals that I presented here, is something that hopefully you will see reflected in the 2 projects that we present here today. Otherwise, we did something wrong. And within that, yeah, I'll let Aina show you and present you who are the faces behind these association. Aina, please go ahead.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you so much. So in this slide, I'm going to talk about who is behind, exactly like Marta said, the faces behind the organization. Here is the closed team meeting, and we represent a structure where everyone gets a vote. You can see the board where Marta is there as well, and then we have other areas as the growth where you can see myself there, communication, research projects that we are going to talk about in a minute, and Leah, that is the projects together with Gabriel. In the next slide, Marta, please. You can see the two working groups that we're going to present today. So the AI ethics team that Marta will talk about afterwards, and the podcast team, which we just kick-started, and I hope that you will enjoy afterwards. Next slide, Marta, please. We have a few initiatives and like 3 areas of work. One is more research oriented, and we have several projects in that field which are more technical, and the AI ethics group and the podcast team as well aim to kind of close the gap, as Marta was saying before, with the technical side and the more ethical, philosophical side. We also have a YouTube channel in which we did our workshop 2 years ago or 1 year ago. And we have the repository of educational resources, which is part of the work of the AI ethics team, but Marta will explain that to you later. And then the last thing that we did, and where Pi School also participated in, was the conference that we did last November. It was a 4 or 5 day conference in which we had the chance to talk about sustainability in AI. And thanks to Cristiano and Sebastian, which represented Pi School, we had a really great time together, and we hope that we will replicate the same this year or next year, and we really hope to see you there as well. We also have a Slack channel in the next slide, Marta, please, which you can join. We have different channels, of course. There, one is more general. Then we have of course, the AI ethics channel there as well, and you are free to join whatever channel you like. Also, just for the mere interested on the topic. But please feel free to with this QR code if you are interested, or you can also find it in our website. And now I leave the floor to Marta again to speak about the AI ethics team.
Thank you, Aina, and thank you, everyone. So yeah, that's the part of the talk where we actually get more, or yeah, let's more focus on the work of AI for people, and also on the content, and that might be more relevant for you guys. We thought about presenting you the AI ethics project and the podcast project, because it might seem like a very counterintuitive choice. You might think, from what we heard, this is a tech talk and you are a more technical public. But we thought that if we stay true to the aim of this association, probably this is exactly what we should be presenting to you here today. Something that brings together your expertise from another standpoint, your expertise on and your reflections on as well. How can you bring your expertise, your technical knowledge to the world of ethics of AI? And on the other hand, how can your work that is more technical be informed by concerns around the ethics of AI and more social questions around which the podcast aims to work on as well? So I'll stop talking now and I'll delve deeply and briefly into the work of the AI ethics group. So who are we? Specifically within the AI ethics group, there's me, Joao, Gabri, Leah, and Maya. We are all from different disciplines. Gabri is a computer scientist. Joao is also a computer scientist. Leah did law and cybersecurity. Maya did economics. And I did personally mathematics and philosophy. And so we have different disciplines coming together to reason around questions of AI ethics. what are we doing? So what I'm going to present you now is a big sort of like mouthful of a sentence that I'm going to unpack, and that we as the AI ethics group as well try to unpack through several of our initiatives. So the promises offered by AI technologies, we think they can raise important ethical and policy concerns among the population. This triggered the need for a set of values to be identified by policymakers, to be ensured through a set of tools and actions by you guys, AI and ML practitioners. So there are three main sort of points to this sentence. On one side, we have the ethical and policy concerns that usually tend to start from the population, but the population here means also experts that are part of the populations. We have a set of values that come through and that need to be upheld in order for these concerns to really be heard, and also upheld in society. And then eventually, we also want to have a set of tools and actions for these values not to remain sort of vague and abstract, but for them to actually be implemented and have an impact on society. So how do we deal with this unpacking in a more practical way? First of all, we decided to focus on the first part of this big sentence, which focuses on the ethical and policy concerns. If you recollect, part of our mission is to learn, pose questions and take action. But the first part is to learn. And we think that many ethical and policy concerns that derive from the population are coming also from a place of confusion and a place of what is AI really going to do? What is AI in the first place? And we think it's important to start from education in that aspect and on that terms. And in order to address that and that need, as Aina mentioned at the very beginning, we developed a series of educational resources, which you can find on our website. Is what we call a repository of different educational resources. By that I mean books, articles, videos that people, normal people, anyone who has access to the internet and to our website can use in order to inform themselves around questions on AI. And on one hand, we thought about this for the public, but not limited to the public, because let's say if you're coming from a very technical field and you want to, let's say, okay, you're interested in bias, but you have only addressed bias in AI from a very technical standpoint, and you're curious to see how does that relate to social bias, to let's say maybe discriminatory outputs from an algorithm, then you might be interested in actually going and checking out the repository to inform yourself about it. Like just to make it feel more concrete, what would be the repository? It's here on our website. And you would go on our website, and here you would have different categories. Let's say you're interested in bias, you would click on bias, and here would be a series of resources that can give you more information on bias, from books to articles and so on and so forth. Of course, if you feel like a category is not represented or a certain resource is not present, you can yourself add resources actually to the repository, which is, I think, a cool aspect of it, by clicking on this link on this form. And this is a way in which we think the repository remains also responsive to the public and to people who want to keep on expanding it. The main aim of this repository is to establish what we call a sound starting point to familiarize with AI and related fields, but also simply and plainly to provide a to-read list on AI-related topics. We think, however, this process of informing what are ethical and policy concerns within the population does not stop here. Once the population and each one of us has had the ability and the occasion, the possibility to sort of inform themselves, it's also very important to start a discussion, right, around the things we have heard and we have read. And we try to engage in that by blog posts that we bring to the public. We curate a series of these blog posts on Medium. You can find us on by following these links. And I think in the past we have also done within that Medium channel also publication with, I do not know whether you guys heard of them, but they are the Italian Association for Machine Learning, where together we were calling for technical people like you to come and reflect on their personal research and on their potential social ethical impact that the research might have on society, and for that to start a discussion also with their wider research community, but also just with people who read Medium. And I think that's another good way in which we can bring your expertise out there in a way that engages in a discussion both the public, but also informs you around potential unintended consequences of your research that you might not even have considered before. So that's it for the blog post. And what is the second part of this big sentence is basically that these concerns also trigger the need for a set of values to be identified. We wrote here by policymakers, but I personally think that started from policymakers, but I think it goes well beyond that. What are these values? So I do not know how familiar you are with this, but I'm pretty sure most of you might have heard about, the typical ethical principles or so-called AI ethical principles more in general. These are guidelines that have been put forward by policymakers that can act as abstractions on the do's and don'ts of algorithmic use in society, plainly what we ought to do and ought not to do when employing AI in society. When we think about these ethical guidelines in Europe, we often think about the ones put forward by the Commission, by the European Commission. I do not know if you guys are familiar with that, but there is also a lot of work being done beyond and outside of Europe in AI ethics, and that spans from the US to China to many other places. So there are a lot of these ethical AI principles out there, and there is no real agreement on them. And this doesn't go just as a critique or merely as a critique to the field of AI ethics, but it also kind of reflects the fact that ethics as a concept is very culturally sensitive, but also culturally dependent. And in that sense, of course, there is no agreement, right? There are different understanding of a certain set ethical value in a society that are different from another. What we thought of is that we could at least work with the overlap that was being found and identified by certain researchers to define a set of temporary ethical principles, at least, that we have identified in the most current literature. These are accuracy and robustness, explainability and transparency, no bias, fairness, privacy, and accountability. Now you guys might be thinking, okay, what do I do with that? I'm curious actually to hear later on when we're going to open the discussion, whether you think at all this is useful. Many times there's a lot of frustration also in the policy field about these values being very aspirational, but remaining very abstract. And I would like to hear your opinion as well from a technical standpoint on the operationability of each of those values in your day-to-day work, for example. But yeah, these are the values that we have identified. And you can find them as well on our website if you're curious. It's under Ethical AI here. I've already opened this for you, but let's go here. So you can find the values over here. And you can see you can interact with them when you read more about it. And you can delve more into what they mean, what they represent, and stuff like this. For each of them, we do not only provide a name, but we also think they should come with a justification. So for example, why should you be caring at all about explainability and transparency? Why should you be caring about bias? And if I take the example of explainability and transparency, that would be, for example, to prevent what is called in many papers as inscrutable evidence, but really is like, whenever an output is not easy to justify or is not easy to understand. The typical example of a black box algorithm, for example. So for each value, we present its motivation, a little description, and a very easy real world example of each of them. In this case is explainability and transparency. Now, once again, coming to you, this is still very abstract, right? Okay, how do we relate this to your day-to-day practice in your work? And this relates to the last part, the action part. So we have now educated ourselves. We post, we sort of like learned. We post questions. How do we take initiative? How do we act on this set of values? Well, we think, a set of tools and actions by AI and ML practitioners. Now, I do not think it's all on you guys. I do not think it's all on the technical world. I think it's relevant for today. But I think, of course, it's any action taken to uphold these principles should start from multiple layers of society and a sort of concerted action. But for today, what can you do on your side? How could this relate to your work? Well, I think for each and every principle that we have identified, we tried to relate it to your work by linking it to a set of tools. These tools can be used by AI practitioners to address for each like specific principle their problem. So we provided links for each principle to resources, code, tutorials that might be relevant to uphold those principles. Let me show you an example. Now here, what you find in the slide might not be that telling. So let me show you once you go here. Let's say you're interested in explainability and transparency, right? You want to read more on it. And it's over here that you will actually find, the example and a little description of it. But if you scroll down, you actually have access to a set of tools for explainability and transparency. Each of them, of course, we're hosting the content, but it's not our tools. That most of them are open source. And for each of them, you can find the code that you can utilize. And if you're curious, you can play around with them. You can get to know more about them. Some of them already come with a tutorial, for example, that might also make the application of each code kind of easier. And we've done this for each ethical principle because, and it doesn't come from me, but a big aspect of research and many researchers called for the importance of transforming these principles, these what's, into how, so into action, into practical examples, into operationalized principle, in fact. And that's a way in which we think this might be relevant. And of course, this work is inspired on the work of some colleagues of mine as well, Morley et al., who have done a great job in collecting so much of these practical tools that can be relevant for researcher in their daily practice. So here is the tools for ethical AI. But what are we working on now at present? So we have been developing a repository of high-risk AI applications. Why do we think this is relevant? Well, when we were reasoning on the AI ethical principles, what they're not just intrinsically valuable, they stand there as a response to a need or to a risk, in fact, to a risk that AI systems are putting on our society. And I think it's important in order to see and to better cater to these ethical values, to see and study specifically the ways in which an AI system can be risky. What do we really mean? And I would be curious to hear your opinions as well. What do we really mean when we say a high-risk AI application? What is an high-risk AI applications at all? And we try to understand that by putting together a set of examples of instances, let's say, of what we think are high-risk AI applications. We have 47 entries so far, and this started as a very sort of inductive enterprise. We started just going out there and looking into everything that was reported in scientific articles, news articles, online publications as a potential sort of like threat posed by AI. But then that would have been and remained very unstructured. So we thought of informing that by looking into what current sort of documents speak about when they talk about like AI, high-risk AI applications. So we took what is currently, I do not know if you guys are familiar with that, the AI Act, which is what is going to be future legislation, hopefully in the EU, about the regulation of the use of AI in society, in our society. And over there is a definition of high-risk AI applications. There is as well a definition for which applications they think should be banned. And we have utilized that definition in order, on one hand, to review what we have inductively found to be high-risk AI applications and to see whether we have gone wrong or not. But on the other hand, we have also used the instances we have found in order to inform and to sort of like stress test what we have seen so far as the potential taxonomy of high-risk AI applications and high-risk taxonomy presented, in the AI Act itself. So it's a bit of like a mutual exercise that can inform our work as well as eventually potentially provide feedback to the commission that is working on it. And we will soon release the first version of the repository. And if you guys are interested in contributing to this, we would love to have you on board on the AI ethics group as well. Some people are technical, some people are not technical in our group, so any background really is welcome. But what is next now? I mean, are you interested in any of this? We're also curious to hear your ideas on the concepts we have presented, the content, but also the concepts, the ideas we have put forward, some of the questions that we would be sort of like curious to hear your opinion on. Is you as a technical person, to you, what would count as a high risk application, for example? And as we found so many examples, I think one question that we have grappled with is, on the contrary, what would not count as a high risk application of AI? I was discussing with Aina the other day, because after all, you can think about a very easy or simple example, or seemingly sort of like very ethical example of AI risk application that might turn into something high risk. This is also the case for many initiatives that start for AI for the social good, but end very badly. And I think this is something I would be very curious to hear your sort of expertise, but also opinion on. And then more in general, we're always happy to hear from you. What would you like us to do more? Do you think it would be more relevant to focus on educational resources when facing the public? Would you like to see a review of a current state of the research on AI and AI ethics? Would you be interested in seeing more real world examples of how to apply ethical principles? Let us know. We're here to listen to your opinion. And if you're interested, also to collaborate with you in many ways. So I think that's it. You can join us on Slack. And I know that Aina presented to you also before another QR code where you can join us. But if you scan this one, you're going to be redirected specifically to the AI ethics channel. So this is specifically for the AI ethics group. And we meet every Monday from 7:15 to 8 Central European time. We know that everyone has a busy schedule and not everyone is in the same time zone. So in case you're interested, we always also reassess the time at which we meet, because we want to make sure to maximize it. Okay, so now I think I can pass the word to Aina. I will stop sharing. And I know that I think we might be taking questions mostly at the end. But if there's anything that you feel it's very pressing, or you might be confused about, and you do not want to wait any longer, just of course do ask it to Aina and I right now or at any point. But I thank you for your attention, and I give the floor.
Thank you, Marta. I hope you can hear me and see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Marta.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to present to you the podcast initiative, which is actually really new. We started in January, so please be patient with us. This is the team. This is the team. We are 6 people, and why I'm going to show you the people in the podcast team. So as the AI ethics team, we all come from different fields, and Andrea and I and Maya come from an economics field, Matteo from mathematics, Gabri from computer science and data science, and Luca as well from philosophy. I would like to say a few words on why we have such a diverse background. Is because we wanted to have a conversation on artificial intelligence from different perspectives, and maybe having different opinions on the topic as well. But most importantly is because our podcast is structured in a way that there are 20 minutes interviews with high-level experts on AI, but on different topics. So we can talk about cybersecurity. We talked with Marta the other day about bias, and we think that we don't really need to be an expert on that same topic as a host ourselves, but is it nice to have a conversation of high quality, and having different backgrounds would help reaching that goal. Now in the next slide, we did this kind of funny slide to kind of explain what was our goal. So as I just said, in this 20 minutes interview, so quite a short time frame, we want to explore a topic, but really focusing on that topic. So for example, if Marta's research is on bias, we want to talk about her research that that is really specific at that point. So a recent paper that she may have published, or something like that. We don't want to spend a lot of time, like an hour or so, talking about a lot of different things. We can do different episodes, but this was our main goal. And the challenge that we have is that we want to explain complex things in an easy format. We will do a little exercise afterwards with you, since you have a technical background, but to explain kind of where the idea came from, I would like to share with you my personal experience with artificial intelligence. I have an economics background, so not really technical, but I was in the third year of my bachelor, and I had to do the internship, and I was emailing a lot of professors and institutions, and then one day this professor came back to me and proposing me to do a research project on artificial intelligence. And I knew nothing about artificial intelligence. I just knew what a lot of people tell us, that they're going to steal our job and things like that. So I knew nothing, but I said yes, and I ended up doing a research project on artificial intelligence and well-being. So I had the chance to kind of get to know how AI could be used for good, and I thought it would be useful to kind of replicate this experience with the podcast. And all of the people that the members of the team kind of had the same experience, and they kind of wanted to give back in some way. And now, of course, you might be thinking, okay, but I already know what AI is, so why should I be listening to this podcast? And this is why it's so interesting to have this conversation right now, because we need to hear from you. What is it that we should be talking about? Because often we make this distinction between technical and non-technical persons. And I don't believe it should be like that, because especially when talking about artificial intelligence, I don't think we have different paths. We just see one same thing from different perspectives. And this is also another reason why we decided to have such a diverse team, and not only people from the philosophical side or the economical side, for example. So I hope that I wanted to be really sure, because now we'll have an exercise, but afterwards I'm really looking forward to the discussion, because I really want to hear from you which kind of things you would like to be discussed in this series of episodes. We are gonna. I hope you know Mentimeter, but if you just go into the website and you type this code, you will find a series of questions. So you will have to explain two concepts without using a series of words. And why is that? They are really a concept that I hope that you already know, which are artificial intelligence and deep learning. And you will have to explain this concept in the easiest form that you can. So I'm gonna share with you the results so you can see them. If you have any problem with the link, please let me know, or if you didn't see the code, I can write it in the chat. I can share it with you a bit longer. You can have it here. This is just to show you that our guests have a hard time sometimes explaining some concepts, because as you may be thinking, maybe it's since they do it on a regular basis, and of course on a really specific basis, then it is really difficult for them, and we totally understand that, to explain maybe really complex things in an easy way, so our audience can understand that. But now you would be our our guest for these 20 minutes, and you will try to explain these topics that, I hope they are familiar to you. I hope you have the code already. If not, let me know, but I will move to the presentation. Let me know if everything works. I don't see your faces, so I would appreciate some feedback.
If I use computer instead of machine, is it cheating, or does it count?
It counts. No, you can use computer, don't worry.
Well, Luigi, you can use Homo sapiens instead of human.
Yeah.
Synonymous, you know. I think I submitted one if everything went well. I'm not sure.
Okay. Let's wait a few more minutes so everyone can submit their answers. Okay.
I think that was my answer for machine learning, but I got confused between the two slides. Sorry.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, yeah. There's a lot of answers for machine learning, less for artificial intelligence. Maybe it was too hard. Okay, so let's see for. I hope you meant deep learning, Luigi.
Yeah, I was on deep learning. Then I see change slide. Then I got confused between the two slides, and I think I posted the same twice.
Don't worry, we won't tell the instructor at my school.
Yes, I think that happened to me too. I just submitted. I didn't get any notification. I entered the same thing for the next question. Sorry.
No, don't worry. Well, you can see my screen, right? You can see the.
Yes. You can see the result. That's cool.
Okay. Wow, you're really good. I wouldn't have known how to answer this question. I mean, I'm not a really technical person, but an approach to learn things from data is so obvious. Okay. Yeah, an approach to learn not so obvious details from data. Good. Was it hard, in your opinion, or was it relatively easy?
That was mine.
Okay. What do you think? Was it hard
You
to
want me to-
explain? Sorry.
I thought you were asking me a question on it.
No. I asked if it was hard to answer, to explain this topic without using these 3 words.
Yeah, at first you are forced to give an academic explanation, but on a second thought, you just want to give it to like a layman. You want to give something without using this technical word. So I think it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, this was just a little game that we prepared for you. Yeah, to show that it's quite difficult, right? To explain. I mean, maybe when I try to explain something in my field, to make it simple, maybe for someone that's listening to me, it's quite hard, right? Because we are kind of this world with these buzzwords that we always use, and then when we find someone that maybe is from another field, it's quite difficult. And this is also the conversation that we want to have at the end. Like, how can we transmit a really complex message in using simple words? But yeah, thank you so much for those who submitted their answers. Now I just get back to the presentations really quick. Yep. As Marta said before, we also rely on the educational resources when decided which topic we should talk about. Of course, as I already said many times, each one of us will focus on one specific topic, but we are free to choose. For example, I did an interview with Marta about bias the other day, which was really interesting, and I hope that you will enjoy too. But also what's so important for us is that we rely on the feedback of our audience. So we normally submit a form after our episodes where the audience can actually tell us which are the topics that they would be most interested in, and we always have really nice feedbacks. These are the platforms that you can find us on, and we also have a Slack channel, and we meet on Monday as well from 8 to 8:30. So if any of you wants to join, just out of curiosity, we'll be really happy for you to join us. But now it comes the most interesting part of this hour, which is the opening up the floor for discussion. And here is our no profit. So if you want to share our message and share our goal, and if here are our contacts, in case you are interested, if you want to email us afterwards, please feel free to do it, and open the floor for questions and discussions. Now I will stop sharing.
So thank you so much, Aina and Marta. It was really interesting. By the way, I want to take part on the AI ethics group. I will contact you soon.
Nice.
I see in the chat that there were a couple of questions already. Maybe you can answer. We can try to discuss about on them. And if anybody else would like to raise a question, you can unmute your microphone and go ahead.
Yes, I have a quick question, if I can. Can you hear me? I didn't understand what I can actually do besides using your repositories in order to contribute. So like tomorrow, if I want to contribute somehow, like I know about machine learning, okay, what can I do? You
mean in general to AI for people, right? Or do you mean like specifically with the educational resources? You probably mean
both.
Okay. Thank you for your question. Well, I think maybe with the educational resources, it's like it's kind of a closed project, but it's still open. So in terms of like, it is done and now it's out there in the website. So the way in which you contribute, it's like, if you go on the website, wait, let me maybe share my screen. I would say that the sort of like, it's minimal by now, which is sad what you can do, but I think you can always, where do we have it? You have projects. If you go on the website here, then you go on projects, and here you would find the repository of educational resources. And once you click on it, if you think like, oh, you know, there's something I want to add, meaning that would be the contribution, you can click on this link, this form. And here it will be like a sort of Google form where you can add a resource that you think, oh, it might be missing, you know, especially we don't have a lot of like technical resources. So if you have something from that standpoint, another way, it's like if you think some of these categories are either not good or not very representative, or you might think there's one missing, then you can definitely email us as well, because, or you can give feedback on the form. You can be like, hey guys, you know, I don't have an additional resource, but I do think you should add a category. So that's sort of like the more specific way in which you can do it. But another way I would say is if you go down, wait, maybe this will be very long. Instead, here's shorter. If you go down on our website, there is the Slack channel. Someone of the chat was also asking about how to join Slack. Here, you can sort of join Slack. And over there, you can find a little bit more, like, for example, you're interested in the AI ethics group, you can directly join the sub channel of the AI ethics group and come to the meetings on Monday, or you can do that with the podcast. Another way, let's say you said, hey, I have like, you know, more technical expertise. I don't really want to engage in like, you know, conversations that much, but I want to actually do like code or something. Then here we have like on our projects, we have some more technical things. We had a project on addressing land degradation with satellite data and AI, for example. We had some projects that were more specific to like, we had one on online identity that was during the pandemic, one on, I think there was another technical one on AI for mental health care. The thing with these technical projects is that we are not a very big team and we are no profit. So the most difficult side of the technical part is to actually keep it up, you know, with people having a busy schedule and being volunteers. So what we usually propose is if someone like you, for example, is very interested in a technical project, they can come up to us either by email or on Slack and just be like, hey guys, I would like to head this project and lead it. And then we're very happy to give you sort of the framework of AI for people. If we agree on something, to give us your support and to help us setting up a team. But we would need someone to sort of like take the lead on that, because it is tough. We found out to sort of like lead a technical project when rightfully so there's so many projects from like profit association that pay developers and stuff. But of course here you would have a certain freedom, and you would hopefully be able to do it for something that you might consider a good cause. So that's a sort of trade-off to have there. Is that a clear?
Yeah, this is probably a big responsibility starting from tomorrow. But I will start somehow.
choose your poison, sort of. I don't know, but it would be cool.
Thanks.
No worries.
There was a question in the chat. Sorry. Go ahead. I was just reading the question in the chat.
No, I just wanted to share with you the best definition of artificial intelligence that I have ever seen. We call artificial intelligence a complex system that performs some task, and we don't really know how it does, but sometimes it's right. I don't know who submitted that, but I really liked it. You can be a guest in our podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Luigi. We had maybe Luciano, you saw it, but at our conference we had Nicolas Miaille from the Future Society. He was one of our guests, and he said that his definition of artificial intelligence is that artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. And yeah, I really like this controversial definition. And what's your opinion on that, Luigi?
Oh, well, artificial intelligence is something that you give direction to, generally speaking. Then you don't know if it really follow them, but at least in the way that is set up, artificial intelligence is a tool that you use to do something. And also the way it learns is something that, let's say, you are designing the way the artificial intelligence learns, on which data it learns. So in some way, artificial intelligence is taking direction from you, from let's say, from the researcher. So then if sometimes it can turn to be smarter than the researcher, yes, maybe, or maybe not. But fundamentally, it starts from a human perspective. I was actually, no, if I can, just throwing up one more point about risk of AI, because one of the things that I personally think is a risk in AI is let's call it the scale factor. So even though a lot of tools of AI are open source, available to everybody that has the right skills and so on, more often than not, the data to train the AI, and so like to get some value out of let's say to get something which is actionable insights or information or whatever it is, it more often than not is not publicly available. I mean, and this is a fact where big companies and the same like Google, Amazon, and Facebook, and the company that have a lot of data about people have let's call it an unfair advantage on others. So I don't know if this is something that you also consider a risk of AI, the risk that the world become divided between organizations that have data and other organizations that don't have access to it. So they cannot really compete.
Well, Luigi, I can take that. Thank you for the question. That's so true. Like, for example, this is something that when you look into the definition in the AI Act, like this is not appearing at all. There's like often a very like sectorial approach to high risk. It's sort of like, okay, if the sector is high risk, let's say healthcare or critical infrastructure, and the intent is sort of goes towards a high risk intent, meaning you mean well versus you mean bad, which is a very tough thing to actually assess. Whether it was developed, let's say, with a high risk intent, then is high risk. And something that is not considered at all, something that you just mentioned, is this sort of like power imbalance that goes completely unnoticed in these definitions. And I totally agree with you. Like when I think on Medium, we had a blog post, one of our initial ones on this, and it's curiously enough is one of the things that also got us starting to think about the association itself. That is exactly as you said, it started from many frustrated also computer scientists being like, there's a lot of open source stuff, but actually we can't really do much with it. There's still a lot of data that is just not in our hands, and I think the problem of scale is totally unnoticed. So I totally agree with you, and I mean it also didn't come from me, because I think scale is a good way of framing the problem that I wouldn't have thought about before. So if you're happy to also come on Monday, we can actually discuss it, but also maybe add it to the criteria, because it's something that is not appearing at all in the commission, for example, definition, and I think it's very relevant.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, just one word about it, because I'm doing this because I'm in the last year of my PhD, and I'm actually focusing on collecting big data via web scraping and analyzing it. So, and I know how much I can do with like a couple of virtual machines, and I know how much I cannot do.
Yeah.
So.
You actually know it from experience, like
yeah.
the real one. Yes. No, you're so right.
But I will try to join. So it's not next Monday. So it's 7:15 to 8 p.m. right?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we should also, I'll also give you, you have the Slack thing here. Perfect. If you feel lost on the Slack at some point, do email me directly, or do let us know on the general channel, and we just redirect you to the sub channels. I'll leave my.
You can also send the picture of the Slack channel in case. You can send me the picture and we'll share with them in our internal channel.
Thank you. That would be great.
Yes, and in case you have event calendar that you can share with us, that would be useful so that we can add it to our calendars for as a reminder for events.
That is
by the way,
that's true. We can actually. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just saying that, by the way, you can just share the slides, and I can share them with all the fellows and whatever, and so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we'll send you the slides after this. That would be nice. And we do have so if you register, if you just say I'm interested, we can actually add you directly to the calendar invite. That's how we usually do it, a bit manually. It's not the best thing to do, but it's also so that we don't have like crazy events where we think a lot of people attend and then they don't. But if you just let me know like, hey, I'm interested, I will literally add you to the event, and you will have it automatically weekly on your calendar for sure.
Okay, thank you. If there are other questions, feel free to maybe judge the last one. Otherwise, don't worry, because next week we will have another tech talk with Gabriela Graffetti, which is part of AI for people as well. So we can will be a very technical talk that time, but could be also the opportunity to further discuss these topics and so. Thank you very, very much. And if you want to say last things, I don't know, Marta and Aina, feel free to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having us mostly and for asking questions and stuff. Thank you, Cristiano. Thank you to Pi School. And yeah, guys, let's keep in touch. Like, feel free, of course, to even email me directly. I'm very happy to reply. Or otherwise, let's meet on Slack or next Monday. Sometimes people even do directly AI ethics meeting and then the podcast meeting, but can be tiring. So I do not specifically advise it. It's like, it's tough. But yeah, it was so nice to talk to you guys. And Aina also, thank you for speaking with me. And yeah, bye everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Ciao, Marta. Ciao, Ina.
Bye. Thank you.